It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Thursday, March 2nd, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that honestly has not stopped laughing since they announced that Shane Gostisbehere trade for the Yotes.
Yeah, 2026 third. Yikes.
All right, we're going to get into that, plus last night's game against the Rangers, and do a prospect profile on Flyers draft pick Hunter McDonald, all on today's show.
Your Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, I am Rachel Donner. You can find me on Twitter at rmiriam. I'm here with Russ Cohen, who's on Twitter at Sportsology. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Flyers. That is where you'll keep up to date on Flyers news, our episodes, all that good stuff. You can also email the show at lockedonflyers@gmail.com. Locked On Flyers is free and available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you are listening right now. So subscribe. You'll get all of our episodes here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Plus, we're over on YouTube, so subscribe over there as well. We are going to get into the lineup decisions and the game from last night coming up right now. All right. So before we dig into the game itself, Russ, there was a bit of controversy at the beginning of the game, well, for throughout the game, where a lot of Flyers fans were blacked out for the game on TNT, which was just a huge oversight and problem when it comes to these blackouts and the rules and zip codes. And there's especially a problem, I think, for New Jersey residents who get roped into this Devils North Jersey
Right.
zip code batch and sometimes get blacked out for New York games. Like, I think they were blacked out because of the Rangers and not necessarily the Flyers.
Yeah, I mean, I'm way, way, way South Jersey, and that happened to me. So it's a crazy thing. It makes no sense. A lot of people just leave. They just go watch something else. This is going to cost viewers in the end. Like the league has to figure this out, and it's bad because you have no notice. You're getting the pregame. You're watching the pregame, and then all of a sudden this notice comes up. It's like it's 1950.
Yeah, it's a little ridiculous. There's something has got to give with these blackouts,
Yeah,
especially as someone like me who lives in New York and is blacked out for 3 teams,
yeah.
which is not
Oh, don't worry.
enjoyable
No, no, no,
at
hold on.
all.
Don't worry. That will change next year because for $309 a month, you could get all those teams on a new MSG, maybe an app or service. So you'll get those teams and the Knicks because I know you want to watch the Knicks too. So
Oh,
don't worry.
yeah.
There's a solution for you out there.
All right. Getting into the game itself, once again, they ice a 11 forward 7D lineup, which is more guys than the Rangers, I guess, who are playing with 11 forwards and
They
5D.
spotted them two players. Yeah, they
I
spotted them two
know.
players. What does
Yeah.
that say?
I don't know. But I will say the first two periods, other than that rough beginning, the
Hmm.
Flyers actually played pretty well and it really kept the Rangers from getting
Hmm.
anything done. Now, the Rangers did kind of shoot themselves in the foot a lot. There was a lot of turnovers. Like,
Yeah.
it was pretty ugly on the Rangers side in terms of that. So it's a shame the Flyers couldn't capitalize on that a little more.
Just, you watch enough games this year, though, and you knew when the Rangers started getting possession in the third period that they would tie it. Like you just knew they were going to tie
Yes.
it. And that's the part where it's like this is where I have a problem with the Flyers conditioning because the Rangers are down two players. They literally only have five defensemen and and they didn't tire out in the third period, but the Flyers did. And the Flyers couldn't hold on to the puck and they couldn't get possession. It's like, how does that happen? You have more players on the ice and you couldn't get it done as far as even just with substitutions. Like you should be fresher. They didn't seem fresher. So like that, all of this is what I look at and say it's a lot more than talent that has to change.
Yeah, absolutely. And, aside from the numbers difference, the Flyers actually put out their trade bait players, and James Van Riemsdyk was out, Justin Braun was out, and then, potentially anybody else out there who could be in trade discussions. And I I I don't know what that says. I mean, to me, with JVR, there was some, like, injury question, and he got out there and, while he didn't, like, stand out
He had
particularly.
one shot that
Yeah,
I noticed.
he said himself that he felt 100%, so maybe that was some sort of evidence. I don't know. Listen, we're trying here,
Well,
to
I
try
mean,
and figure
all
this
right,
out.
here's the absurdity of it. The absurdity of it is the quote on air was Chuck Fletcher had never even crossed his mind to rest anybody. Meanwhile, going to the Arizona side, they've been trying to trade Nick Schmaltz. He's now hurt with an upper body. So it's like, what are you doing? What actually are you doing? The Rangers were playing 2 players short to begin with. You could have played 2 lesser players and protected your assets. There was no reason to do that. It made no sense on any level. And again, it's almost like the Flyers are doing this in the face of the rest of the league. Like, hey, we've got our way of doing it. Don't worry about what you're doing.
Yeah, I there's just something missing here, and I don't know if it's the potential conflict or power struggle between Fletcher and Torts, but this is there's some noticeable poor strategy decisions being
Yes.
made along these lines. I will say though, one positive thing from this game is I really like that Frost and Farabee and Tippett
Mhm.
were back together. I
Yeah.
think, this is a good combination to get Farabee going again.
Yes.
Um, and I think it helped a little bit. He had 3 shots on goal in the game. I thought he played a little better
He
than
looked a
he
little
has
better. He
been.
did. I felt that way too, a little more engaged. When you got guys like that on the line, there was a little more jump, a little speed. There's some continuity there, some creativeness, a lot of things that are missing on a lot of Flyers lines. So, yeah, I felt like that was a good thing. Wade Allison had a good game too. I don't want to take that away from him. The thing about Tippett, though, as you know, you can't miss that many wide open shots. You just can't. And like he can now on the team he's on now, but if he wants to be a 30-goal scorer in this league, which is probably what I thought he would be when he was drafted, he has to be able to hit those shots. Now he's going to end up with 22 goals this year, something, which is a good year, but it's not going to make you a second liner in this league when the Flyers are good, and who knows when that is.
Right. He did stand out obviously the
Yeah.
most
Yes.
in this game of anybody. Owen Tippett, he had 7 scoring chances. He did get that 1 goal, which was really lovely.
Hmm.
4 shots on goal total. And then, Frost on that line had 2 high danger chances as well. You talk about that creativity and you
Yes.
saw it. You saw Frost's work from behind the net that
Yep.
he's so good at in this game. And so, yeah, I think you're right. I think that's just, like we said last season,
Got to
he's
work
gotta
on
work
it. Yeah.
on the shot accuracy, but I do think his creativity and his speed, like, he has improved on a lot of things this
Yes.
season. This is
Yes.
just kind of that final piece for him
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
jump and be a solid second liner.
Yeah, I agree. That is the final piece.
So I
What about
there's
all
a
the
lot
Rangers
going.
fans there? Like,
Oh my god.
so look, I've gone to games in Newark where the Ranger fans take over Newark, and I've been to other places, and like in all the years, I think this was the biggest takeover. Now, to be fair, they all thought Patrick Kane was going to play, and then kind of like 6 hours later, he
Right.
wasn't. So that was a part of it. But still, the fact that that many seats are available and that many seats were filled by Ranger fans, it's not a great look. And they even had to mention that on TV. Darren Pang was like, wow, this is a great crowd. And then he was like, but there are a lot of Ranger fans behind me. And, it's like, it's not what you want. I mean, I get it. They're making money. That's fine. But again, the Phillies used to have this problem. Like me being a Met fan, Met fans would come and take over, Citizens Bank. That doesn't happen anymore now that they're good. But that's what has to happen. And Tortorella mentioned that post game, like, hey, it's on us, meaning we got to play better, and then our fans will show up. And to a large degree, he's right. But right now, it's a horrible look.
Yeah, it absolutely is. On a weekday too, man.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's on a weekday.
That was the rough part of it for
If it was a
me, although.
Saturday, it's a little more forgivable.
Right, right. but I think you're right about it, being a Patrick Kane related last
Yes.
minute ticket purchase. But, um, it is what it is right now with the Flyers. Well, I think, we have a lot to talk about, more to talk about with the Flyers plan that we discussed on yesterday's show. And we're going to dig more into what that means for the Phantoms coming up next, plus some trades around the league. We're not going to get into the Jacob Chikrin deal or that Penn's questionable move to get Michael Granlund, but because those happened after we recorded those segments. But we will absolutely do that on tomorrow's show, which we're going to record after the trade deadline. So keep an eye in your feeds for any breaking news that may happen on Thursday or Friday, and we will have that for you as well.
The midway point of the NBA season's here, and now the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000, that's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scorers and threes drained. Kevin Durant's going to start playing for Phoenix, so maybe start checking them out. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine for your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same game parlay. So don't miss your chance to get your first no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go fanduel.com/lockedon. That's fanduel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA.
The NHL trade deadline, as we've been talking about all week, is tomorrow. So join Locked On NHL live on that YouTube channel from 2 to 4 Eastern on Friday as Locked On NHL hosts break down all the biggest deals from across the league. And should any trades occur for the Flyers, the clock is ticking. We will be giving our quick reactions and analysis over on our YouTube channel. So make sure you're subscribed to get the latest.
The reaction quicker than the trades, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Russ, one of the things we didn't talk about as much when we were breaking down that Chuck Fletcher presser yesterday was how it relates to the Phantoms. And we could see that they sent Sam Urson down
Mhm.
last week for the duration, ostensibly to help that team in their playoff run. And it seems like this is more of a coordinated, concerted plan and part of the development of some of the younger guys, that they really want those guys to go through a playoff run and get some playoff experience ostensibly when the Phantoms make the playoffs. And I think that that's one thing we've talked about that I think they're going to follow through on, which is kind of
Well,
good to see in some ways.
it's almost by accident, though, too, because they only have 4 recalls. So the fact that they only have 4 recalls made this a very easy decision. So this was their best way of saying, this is what we want to do, because they have to do it. They have to do it. There's no other way. Uh, and it's still an if they make the playoffs, but it's good that they're going to give them a chance. But again, the fact that they only have 4 recalls, that's been mismanaged all season.
Right. I mean, injuries aside, I think there could have been a better way
Oh,
to
yeah.
handle some of it. I think that, while and I've said this, I'm upset when they do 11 forward 70,
It just
and
doesn't make sense.
it
Makes
doesn't make
no
sense.
sense.
And, you're sitting Kiefer Bellows and Ollie Lixel, who again, you need to find more out about to get valuation. Now, maybe they've made up their mind with Kiefer Bellows. It
I
seems like
think they've
Torts
made up their
has.
mind on both of them. I'm really annoyed, but I just think that's the case.
Yeah, so it seems like they're gonna send him back down as well at some point. They've said specifically that Elliot Denoye is gonna go back down after the trade deadline. They know what he's been able to do and they like him. They've talked a lot more positively about him than they have about Ollie Lixel,
Yep.
that's for sure. And then it was also mentioned that Cam York could be going back down for a playoff
Which
run
makes
with
no
the
sense.
Phantoms.
Honestly, that's the one that makes no sense. Cam York needs more time at the NHL. Like, he's already been at the AHL. I don't think that a Calder Cup run is going to help him more than him playing big time NHL minutes. towards an end of a season. I don't understand this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll depend on the timing, relative to the end of the NHL season versus the AHL and how that could affect it. But yeah, I think if they do it with more than like 10 games left, like that's I don't know, man. I just don't think that's the right
Like, he
path for
needs the
him.
reps with the big club. Like, he
He
really does.
does. And then he also needs to have a regular off season like
Yes.
an NHL player would have. He needs to have that break. He needs to start his training on the timeline that would match up with the Flyers for next fall. And if he's
Right.
playing extra time, sure, that's good for him in some ways. Like, I do understand that. But I also think that he really needs to get into the flow of the training and preparation for an actual NHL season next fall without, and being on that same timeline. And that
Look,
that
and
is
if all this is a
an
function
issue.
of tanking, that's one thing. But again, you shouldn't tank to the point where you're not going to give a guy the experience that he needs. And the experience he needs is at the NHL, not at the AHL for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, as of recording, which is a little bit before the game against the Rangers, we're recording this part of the show. Still no deals for the Flyers. That could change at any minute, but it's starting to
Any
feel a
minute
little,
now.
yeah, it's just starting to feel real weird. Like it was a little, concerning. Now it just feels weird.
Well, I mean, it's weirder when the coach decides he's not going to sit anybody either who might be traded. Like, again,
Yeah.
if somebody gets hurt and we find out that there could have been a trade, like what in the world is John Tortorella doing? Where is there any sense in what he is doing? It makes no sense. I get it, that's what they used to do, but that's what they used to do. Nobody does it that way now. This year, right now, 2023, nobody does it that way.
Yeah, it's really, really bizarre. And then, as I mentioned at the top of the show, I think, man, it is a rough thing to accept to see Arizona get a third round pick for Shane Gostisbehere after Chuck Fletcher paid the Yotes a second and a seventh to take him. So, essentially in that exchange of Shane Gostisbehere, they got 3 picks.
Not bad.
And
Good for
I mean,
them.
that's pretty good. Yeah, it is pretty good for them. And it just says like, ooh, what it says about the Flyers in that situation. Now the times were a little different, but not different enough that it doesn't still
No, I
hurt.
mean, had they developed him correctly, they wouldn't have had to trade him. But he was struggling at the end, so I get why he got traded. But yeah, all of it looks bad.
Well, and not only does the, comparison of the trades look bad, but then you say, "Oh, the Canes needed an offensive defenseman." There were rumors out there about maybe Tony DeAngelo going back there. Nope, nope. It's going to be Shane Gostisbehere. Like that's what makes it harder for me anyway. It's
Again,
like, oh,
that's it's better for them because I'd rather have Gostisbehere
totally.
over D'Angelo too.
Totally. I think, it's the right move for the Canes. It's the right move for the Yotes. It's just kind of like big old sad trombone for Flyers fans, I
It's the way it's
think.
going, man. I mean, it's like, there's still a lot of bad things yet to come. Sorry.
Yeah. With the other news around the NHL, we saw a huge deal with the Columbus Blue Jackets and LA Kings that sent Gavrikov and Korpisalo to LA in exchange for legendary Kings goaltender Jonathan Quick and a 2023 first and a 2024 third back to Columbus. But as we were aware pretty quickly, haha, that was not something that Jonathan Quick really wanted to do. It seems like he wanted to retire as a King. And so I don't know if they're trying to make some deal with Vegas in order to make
Yeah,
that happen. But
I don't
in
think it's going to
order for
happen.
Columbus to get some sort of compensation for the fact that they won't have the goaltender since they sent Corpusalo out of town. But I just it was a surprising deal to me.
I mean, look, we saw Jonathan Quick a few weeks ago. He was legit awful.
Oh, sure.
Last year he had a nice comeback year. A couple years ago he struggled too. Should they have treated him this way? No. He's
No,
won 2
that's the part of
cups.
it, right?
He's their best goalie in the history of the franchise. Uh, it's a horrible way to treat him. I'm sure he's really ticked off, and I fully expect him to retire. I just think, but again, everybody's like, well, it'll be okay when they retire his number. When the Rangers kind of screwed over Brian Leetch, he didn't go back for a very long time. I don't know if Jonathan Quick's going to rush back for a number retirement, to be honest.
It might take him a while to do
Yes,
it if he does, that's for sure. So, we'll see what develops along those lines with his status. But in the meantime, the Red Wings finally extended Dylan Larkin to what I think is a great deal.
it's a
That's
good
good for
deal.
the team, and it's good for him. So glad to see that finally done. Then we saw Lars Eller dealt from the Caps to the Colorado Avalanche for a second rounder in
Yeah, it's a smart pick.
2025.
I kept telling people
Yeah,
you can't get a second line center in the trade deadline. You just can't. So he's a third liner. Comfer probably stays at the second line. He's good on faceoffs. They'll be fine. I think they'll make the playoffs and they'll still worry people.
yeah, I think that was a really smart deal for the
It
Avs
was.
as well. The Canucks are doing Canucks things
Oh
and
yeah, I
trading
don't
first
get them.
round draft picks away, but that's
First and seconds.
yeah,
I mean, I get Roenick's good, but he's only got 1 year. Like, what are you doing?
I know.
Are
It
you
is
gearing up for next
absolute
year? Are you
madness.
kidding me? It is the most lost franchise next to the Flyers. Both of them
I know. Thank God for the
horrible.
Canucks, right?
Yeah,
Make us feel better
it's the only way
sometimes.
you can.
All right. We are going to switch gears and look toward a positive future with one of our draft prospects, Hunter McDonald. We will be doing that coming up next. Today's show is brought to you by Indeed. And if you don't have players on the field or the ice with the right skills, whether it's breakaway speed or elite playmaking ability, you're going to have a tough time winning. And the same goes for your business. Indeed is a fast, simple way to make sure you're hiring MVPs instead of spending hours on multiple job sites hoping to find candidates with the right skills. You need one powerful hiring partner that can help you do it all. One of the things I love about Indeed is that it makes hiring all in one place so easy. They partner with you on every step of the process. You find great talent through time saving tools like Indeed Instant Match, assessments, and virtual interviews. With Instant Match, over 90% of employers get quality candidates as soon as they sponsor their job post, according to Indeed data. And candidates that apply through Instant Match are 3 times more likely to apply to your job than candidates who only see it in search. So start right now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at indeed.com/locked on. Offer valid through March 31st. That's indeed.com/locked on to claim your $75 credit before March 31st. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire, you need Indeed. So, Russ, Hunter McDonald, if we recall, was drafted in the 6th round in last year's draft for the Flyers. He's a big guy, 6'4", 215. And at the time, he was a double overager. So he was drafted
Yeah,
at 20 years old, which is a little unusual.
like Ronnie Adder.
Yep. Yep. He's an upstate New York kid. And so he had some fun experiences related to that once he got drafted, local mini celebrity there. But he played in the USHL, which is obviously, as we know, a pretty solid developmental league before that
Hmm.
with Omaha and Chicago, and is currently at Northeastern University. And they just won the men's Beanpot.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool. And he's a defensive defenseman. So what do you got on Hunter and his progress so far?
Yeah, it's interesting. I watched him intently in training camp, and it's funny because even though we call him a defensive defenseman, he's got a pretty good shot. But sometimes these guys just, will get put in a role and they're never going to get to do it. But yeah, over at Northeastern, he's a big time shot blocker. He's a big guy, as you know. He's a pretty good skater. He got his first goal of the year as an empty netter to beat
Yeah.
to beat BU, I think it was.
Yes, it
Um,
was.
yeah, so that was nice the way he kind of got that goal. He's got a little flair for the dramatic. I like it. He is a project, so again, much like Ronnie Attard, gonna turn 21. You won't be seeing him till 23, 4, 5, something like that if he makes it to the NHL. But I think there's a chance. I think he could be a third pairing defenseman, and if you get him up there, and he is a good shot blocker, that's something they could really use because right now the Flyers do block shots, but when you can get a guy this big that's blocking shots, it's a lot better for your goalie.
Yeah, and he has more than double of the blocks of any of his teammates right now, and is leading Hockey East
Yeah.
in blocks. So I think that says a lot. It's not just on his team, right? That he's
Hmm.
just one of the more prolific guys in the conference. He also gets into some scraps. You will
Hmm.
see that from him. But as far as his offensive side, I think you're right that it's not there yet. But I have seen him make some really nice outlet passes, and I
Hmm.
think that's what you really want from a guy like that, that's gonna have the vision to see where the right pass is to get that offensive rush going. And I think you do see that from him quite a bit. Now, he's not gonna have as much time at the NHL level to make those decisions, and I think that's where the learning process will be for him, as he matures and tries to make the switch into the pro game in a couple of years. But every team needs a guy like this, right? And
They do.
why not get someone that you drafted instead of
Yeah.
having to find one?
No, no doubt. I mean, again, from development camp, he really had one of the better shots. Again, they were a little light on defense in that, but still, I mean, he does. But it's again, we'll see if it ever comes into play. Everything else will come into play, though. I think the hockey IQ is good. When I spoke to Shel Samuelson back then about him, he thought he was a raw talent. I agreed. I thought, yeah, there's some things here you could build on. Strength, the shot blocking, like you said, the outlet passing, the skating's pretty good. That's good. You get him in there for 12 minutes a game, protect the goalie. You know, Flyers could kind of use that now.
Yeah, and right now, as a freshman, even though he's 20, he's a freshman because it's his first year
Yes.
there, so he has eligibility left. He is getting second pairing ice time, which is pretty good considering
Yes.
as a sixth round pick as opposed to a higher pick. He's still getting some quality minutes on the team in their top four. So I'm glad to see that. I'm glad to see him progress and flourish in the college game. I think it's been a weird season for Northeastern, with some ups and downs during their quote unquote regular season. But I think winning the Beanpot helped them a
Yeah.
lot with their confidence.
Yeah, no doubt. And he was a part of it and he had a big chunk of it. And so that's nice for him. Yeah, I look at him and I say, all right, we'll keep an eye on you the next few years. I think he's gonna go at least three in college, and then maybe we'll see if he comes out after that. But maybe he only goes two, maybe he has another big jump next year. That's the whole thing. You don't really know for sure, but a guy like this was worth the risk.
Yeah, I think so too. We shall continue to follow his development as the rest of the college season continues and into next season, where I'm assuming he will be back at Northeastern, and we'll see what steps forward he can take then. Our fun thing, after he was drafted, Hunter, of course, made the news on local
Of
TV.
course.
So the little profile they did of him and the interview they did was very, very cute. And so we are sharing that with you now. That will do it for today's show. We will be back again tomorrow with a trade deadline update. We'll get into the weekend matchup against the Red Wings and anything else that's happening around the league, should any
With
more
all those other
bonkers
teams making trades.
trades. Yes, exactly. As a reminder, we want to hear from you. So if you've got any reactions to the trade deadline or things you wish maybe the Flyers had done, you want to let us know, you can tweet us at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail or comment over on YouTube. I'm Rachel. I'm on Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen today. Now make your second listen Game to Game NHL. It's every moment, every top performance, every result. Locked On Game to Game covers every game from across the NHL with local analysis only Locked On can deliver. It's available on the Locked On NHL feed wherever you get your podcasts. Have a great day, everyone.